Hi, it's Ileana here, and today we have Tony Rodrigues with us. Welcome back, Tony.
Hi, good to be back. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. So, Tony is an SSP experiencer, and he's also been in my labs, right, Tony?
Well, it wasn't exactly a My Lab. It was a version of it.
Okay,
I kind of got shuttled through the side door. It wasn't actually a My Lab.
okay. So, can you describe a bit your background with the SSP experiences and uh, sort of what the related MyLab stuff was? And then you have some new stuff too that you have to describe, right?
Okay. Um, well, I met somebody when I was a kid that had access to the programs, and it wasn't officially. It was kind of like they snuck me through, and I was abducted and did what's sometimes referred to as a 20 and back. Right? You're familiar with it. Most people, everybody. I'm actually shocked by how many people know what it is nowadays. But basically, I did 20 years from the age of 10. It was 10 years old. It was like the school year of 82, 83, or 81, 82. Yeah, 82. And so it was April of that year. So I would have been 10. I would have turned 10 in February. And I was taken and did 20 years and then put back. And what happened was, at first, I was taken into um, like a small program that was on the side for privately owned, and it was like an offshoot of some CIA programs, remote viewing and actually Project Grill Flame. It was an offshoot of that with that funding. And we did psychic service, and I ended up working on drug shipments from uh, Peru to Colombia for a couple years until I hit puberty, and then I lost the ability from what I was trained for. It's funny that I dug up a bunch of stuff. I've actually dug up a lot of info that proved, corroborated my story. But from there, I was sold into what a lot of people don't like to talk about, and I don't either, but I was sold into the pedal cage stuff. And I was privately owned by a billionaire. I was one of a bunch of boys that stayed. He had a 500-acre place. He had many houses with girls in one house that we never saw. But it was basically sex service, sex slavery. And a lot of times I do interviews. I've been on Gaia. They don't want to talk about that stuff because it's pretty dark. The guy that owned me was a practicing Satanist. I witnessed a few satanic rituals, and I witnessed the human trafficking and the pedogate stuff. I mean, firsthand, literally, I was a victim of it. I was there till I was about 16, 15 or 16 in that time, and then basically lost my use for it. I've described that in other interviews what happened, but basically they sold me off to the military, and at that point I was shipped into space, and I went to the moon for training, and then I went to the Mars Colony Corporation for a program that was phased out, was unsuccessful, and then retrained in a city in Mars, inside Mars, an underground city, and did aptitude tests, and then retrained and ended up being sold to the Ceres Colony Corporation, Giesel Shaft, and worked on ship maintenance for another 8 years, and then eventually was promoted. That ship was decommissioned, and I worked on a modern ship as cargo engineer right up until the time when they put me back. They put me back to the moon, and I went back through the age regression, and there's a time travel component of it, and I woke up in my bed the next day, back to being 10 years old.
Mm-hmm. Do you have memories of ever meeting Randy Kramer, people like that, in when you were doing your SSP service?
Nobody that's come forward, like I don't have memories of meeting people that have come that are whistleblowers, but I have met people. Well, there's one, but he doesn't do it anymore, so I can't give a name, but I've met several people that I've met up there, and some of them don't remember. And it's what I found is that it's a very what's the word? It's a very inconsiderate thing to do, to tell somebody that I'm sorry, but you did go through this. A lot of people have memories. A lot of people have been. It manifests in many different ways. When you've gone through these programs and you've had your memory blanked, you still there's bleed through, there's residual bleed through, and people remember things, but it comes out in different ways. It manifests in different ways, and a lot of people think that they were one thing when really they were another. And so, and then again, I'm 48, so we're talking 38 years ago plus 20 years after that, 58 years that I'm remembering. After I was taken into the Inyo Current Air Base and went through that was, for me, that was 58 years ago. So, I mean, anybody that's 65, 70 years old, when you tell them to remember something 50 years ago, how well are they going to remember it? You know, like, so it's not like it's crystal clear for me. The names of people, especially, I have a hard time with, and the faces. But I mean, there are personality traits that you never forget about people. You meet them, and I was like, man, I know that was you. You know, like, I know that was you there. So, but no, as far as whistleblowers, I didn't serve alongside Randy, or I don't believe yourself. You know, I was I was compartmentalized, and I was in a different place. And when I was on series, when I worked, I was in a very limited lifestyle. I woke up, went to work, manned my post. I was on a spaceship. I didn't look out the window. It was very rare that I got to go up on a lunch break or a bathroom break and go by and look outside a window. And there was so much reward for doing a good job that I didn't want to. So, you know, I stood at my post most of the time. That's what and it was mundane. And then it was just like being let out of school or something. When the ship stopped and docked, there was a mad rush at the door, and I went out to a train and I went back home. And so that was 98% of my life up there.
And I remember you spoke in an interview about Diego Garcia, seeing that base when you guys were delivering and loading stuff. Can you discuss that a little bit?
Sure. What I remember most about Diego Garcia is seemed to be, we went there many times, but sometimes there'd be a hiatus, but there were sometimes we went there very often, and it was always military equipment. There were some times when I remember one time we picked up like 10,000 pairs of boots, you know, that just was leftover surplus. And so they stuck it there and we took it with us. But we would go there in the middle of the night. And it's funny, well, I'll get into this in a second, but we would go there in the middle of the night. We would offload some things, usually not as much as we took on. I didn't know what was in the boxes most of the time, but I knew it was my job to take the size and the weight of the boxes. And then I generated a report for the crew inside the cargo hold to place it, you know, to where they were going to put it. And we usually took more than we dropped. We would drop a box or two off, or 10 boxes, and we would take quite a bit. You know, we would take 50 with us, and sometimes big items. But there was a time I used to go down. There was once or twice that I actually set foot on the tarmac, and there was a time that the shipment we waited for was late. And this was always, this is like one of those times in your service, you know, like anybody that's been in the military or whatever, there's things that you never forget. And what happened was this thing was running like 2 to 3 hours late. It was a ship. And so we went to I think it's called Turtle Bay or Turtle Cove. And we backed the ship up, and they dropped the cargo net out of the main cargo hold, and they let us go swimming, which I didn't go in the water that time, but we had done it before. But I just went down there and kind of hung out with the crew, which was a very rare thing. Like I said, most of the time I was at my station, and it was very rare. So I remember making fun of people that said Turtle Bay, Turtle Cove. I said, those turtles are going to bite you. You know, like I was cracking jokes to the people that were in the water. And so that was just something that's like a really strong memory that I've never forgotten. You know, we always joked about Diego Garcia. You know, we'd say we're going to pick up Russian cargo off a Chinese ship at an American base in the Indian Ocean, an American base with an Italian first name and a Spanish second name in the Indian Ocean for some Germans. Like, that was our joke, and we kept adding on to that. So it was hard to forget Diego Garcia.
And one time you guys were picking up cargo and you had a discussion with somebody on the base, something about proof and, you know, like shortchanging cargo or something. That was interesting. Can you describe that?
Well, what happened was there were I want to say 2 American military officers that met with us in the middle of the night. Like, so that's what I wanted to get back to earlier, was that recently I found an article about a protocol on Diego Garcia. I can send you the link, I've got it saved, but I put it on one of my interviews. There was a comment of somebody said, some guy commented, and he said, I was on Diego Garcia. That's bullshit. Pardon my language, but he's like, that's BS, because they never made us stay in our room to where, you know, a spaceship would come in. That's total BS. And I was like, well, that's what I remember they told me, that when we came down there in the middle of the night, it was always at night, late at night, that there was a lockdown where people couldn't come to the base where we were. And there are two main, like, they look like parking lots. There are two main ones, and it was kind of the square one to the west. I believe it's to the west. That's where we landed. The ship was about 1,000 feet long, and we fit right there. And that, I just remember that place. That's where it was. So I found an interview, or there's a link that says that is indeed protocol, that many times in the middle of the night or during the day, they'll lock it down where nobody has access and can leave their room, that they can't access the runway, that they shut it down for black projects. So that's a normal thing. So anyhow, that was something that kind of recently happened that also corroborated my account, which was good. But what to get to your point, there were always at least two officers. One supervised the offload and kind of checked everything off, and the other one had there was a clipboard and a document that we had to sign. And our ship was hard capped at 10 meters above the ground. It could never land. It was always flying no matter what. And it was hard capped. It would never touch the ground. It could go in the water, but there was a special thing they did. But it was 10 meters, about 30 feet above the ground. So we had an elevator that out towards the front of the cargo area. It was a decent walk, about midship. There was an elevator that dropped down on cables. It had 4 cables, and it was a lift that we rode down. And there was only like 3 guys could fit on it comfortably, 3 or 4 guys. But really, we only wanted, if you got a lot of guys, it was shaky when it went down. So we did 2 guys only. One of the officers didn't come that day that normally would have went down and took the signature from that guy or signed off for the cargo we got. So they sent me down because I was the next guy in charge, and it went into my cargo bay. I went down, and the guy said, "Look, you guys are running up a tab." And so it's the first time I was thrilled to just be in contact with a person from the Earth at that time. You know what I mean? I was visiting from Ceres, so it was cool. But he said, "You guys are running up a tab," and it was something like $2.5 million or $3 million. He said, "You guys are getting up there. You owe like $3 million. When are you going to pay it?" And I said, "Look, I'm a cargo. I don't think I identified myself as a slave, but I had a rank. I had like it was like a G1 or E1 rank. I had a very slight rank, which was basically a slave rank." And I said, "Look, I'm not. This is above my pay grade. I can't promise you it, but I'll tell the guys in the meeting tomorrow." And he said, "Okay, well, it's no big deal, but just so you guys know, your tab's getting high." And I'm supposed to say something. So the next morning, I always went to the mission briefings, and they were in German. They were Germans, but then there were times when they would turn on the translator when they wanted to call on me. And at the end of the meeting, said, "Does anybody need to add anything?" I raised my hand, and I said, "Look, the guy I signed off yesterday, and the guy said that our tab is running pretty high for the money that we owe." And they cried laughing. They laughed. They rolled laughing because the American thought we were paying money for it, but the Germans didn't pay a red cent. It was totally the black budget pays for that, for resources that are getting off-worlded to the colonies. That's totally incorporated on Earth, and it's basically a free thing. If maybe there's a trade, that maybe there is some kind of agreement, but they thought the notion of them owing money was hilarious, and they rolled laughing for a long time at that.
Yeah, when I was doing my own investigation into what planetary corporations is and the setup of that, I got a bunch of names through the hypnosis of Earth corporations that are affiliates of planetary corporations on Mars. So it's all interconnected. A lot of Earth companies are connected to the off-world stuff, to the black ops. It's all tied in, and it's all behind the scenes, and the payments are taken care of. So everything, the infrastructure is there.
Yeah, in the early days when I was being researched by some researchers, that was one of the big questions. Like, what corporations did you remember seeing signs for up there? And I went through all that with them, but the reality was that they had a few corporations that they worked with that bought off other corporations. So it looked like it was, like if they wanted a ton of steel, for instance, it was a corporation here on Earth somewhere that would purchase it and ship it to where it was going to be off-worlded. And they had it all down to a science. And like I said, they didn't pay for it. The black budget pays for it.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's contractors, aerospace companies, medical companies, banking. It's all interconnected with these programs.
And very little of the stuff that they took was of value to them. They were taking it to trade with someone else for something that was more high tech. They were after technology. There were inner Earth groups that we did cargo with. It was a place in the Catarina Mountains that we took cargo, and it wasn't there. It was like it was under. We could fly into the mountain, into a cave, and go down quite far. I remember and there was a ledge where the ship could come down, and then there was a drop off, like it kept going like a chasm, and it was inside a cave. It was dark, but on the one wall you could see at the top there was vegetation growing, and you could see the sunlight coming in. But there was an inner Earth group that would meet us there, and I think they were blue. They were bluish tinted people and taller. But they had ships. They had the technology to fly right through the rocks, to fly right through. And the Germans didn't. They really wanted that. They coveted that technology badly, and they really kissed their butt. And we would take cargo and drop it there. And what we were doing for them was taking their cargo and delivering it to places that they weren't supposed to by treaty deliver it to. So we were the middle. We were a third party. You know, if they wanted to give it to somebody, they had a treaty not to give anything to. They would outsource it to us, and we did it trying to kiss their butts to get some technology. And there were times when we opened up their cargo and had a look at it, and you know, there were missiles. There was a missile we took one time that it was like a nuclear missile, but once it was fired, it couldn't be stopped. It would fly right through whatever it was. So it was a missile that could fly through a solid object. So once it was fired, you couldn't shoot it. You couldn't do anything to stop it. It was free until it got to where it was going to detonate, and then it went off. So it was an unstoppable missile that we ferried for them to another. And I think I have an artist version, you know, like a sketch of it, because we opened it up in the box, and it was small. For what it was. I mean, it was 3 or 4 feet long. I mean, it was a small thing, but it was extremely deadly. It was extremely destructive, very, very advanced above what the Germans had at the time.
Mm-hmm. And I very much believe you, because your story, your testimony is consistent, it's clear, and you're not looking for money or fame. You're disclosing your facts, your information that you have. So you've been around for a long time doing this, for a couple of years now, right?
Yeah, well, I had the big breakthrough where I got all my memories back in 2015, and I did my first interview, I think, in September of 2016. So 4 years now, you know, coming up on 4 years, and probably 70 interviews, I'm thinking. But I just didn't want to take it to the grave, man. I just didn't want to lay there on my deathbed or wherever it happens. You know, I believe we all get 3 or 4 minutes that you're aware that you're going to die, and I don't want to be in that moment and had all these experiences that I just never shared with. You know, it was just too hard to keep in. You know.
Yeah, I understand. And there's a lot happening in the world where things are starting to link up, where our testimony actually is linking up with what's happening on Earth.
So what's happening now? I mean, obviously we're in a crazy world. I mean, you know, we're in the middle of the COVID. What is the date today? It's 4/20/2020.
Yep.
4/20. I should have lit up. I don't know, but where we're at today is, you know, just this morning, I read about a giant pedophile ring bust in Australia, and I heard about another one out west somewhere, like two mass arrests this week. So that would fall in line with a lot of what a lot of other people are saying, that the virus is also a thing to keep everybody down while they conduct arrests of people. So oddly enough, I mean, to me, when I first came out with my story, when I first started talking to researchers and came out with to my knowledge at the time, I was the first one that mentioned that any of the satanic pedophile stuff was connected with the space program. I had no idea of anybody. I still don't have any knowledge of anybody that said that before me. Unfortunately, that's the best bet of shred of proof that I have, because during that time that I was involved with that, I was on Earth. It was, you know, there was 2 of me, and you know, there was me, the little kid at home, and then on a certain timeline, I guess a clone of myself or whatever it is, however the technology works. But there was another one of me in Seattle being used for that in that network, and I went there. I found the house and I found the people. They've deceased. The owner, they have children. That's why I don't say their names, because I don't. They may or may not be involved, and it's not fair. And I worry about my own safety.
Mm-hmm.
But all of that stuff was proof to me, because because being skeptical, I appreciate people being skeptical of what I've said, and I was very skeptical. I would not have come forward if I had not convinced myself that I was telling the truth. And how I did that was I went to the house. It was exactly how I remembered it. The entire island, I knew my way around it. I went to the general store that I'd been back in the 80s, and it was just how it was. And I could tell the difference. Where I was, I said, oh, that's new. That's a new gas station. I went to a beach we were taking. I knew where the rocks were. I knew what was up around the corner. I knew that the new fence was there, that it wasn't there when I was back in the 80s. Like, all these things were real. I mean, not only did I remember it, but it was like freaky, So I had to run with it. That's that. If that stuff is right, then the space stuff memories have got to be right too.
Yeah, exactly. Because I know a lot about genetics and genetic testing and plasma therapies and stuff. That's from my memories serving on planetary corporations in the cybernetics labs. I actually decided to apply that experiment on myself because I have a damaged autoimmune system, and it worked. Plasma therapy worked here on Earth to do it. I do weekly infusions of it now because I need it to survive.
Wow.
So that's how I got my confirmation, and I also had genetic testing done, and I have a certain type of rare migraine disorder that's genetic. So, and I found ways to treat that as well with some of the stuff from my own hypnosis regression. So it's confirmation. I'm not a medical technician. I'm not a doctor. I'm not anything, but I have medical knowledge because that's what I used to do on Mars. So I got my confirmation that way. And I never used to tell people that I am certified to do past life regression forms of hypnosis. That's how I got my memories, because I trained for that and I had self-hypnosis done. So I never told that to people, but now I'm disclosing it because there's no point of keeping it to myself.
Right. And we're in the first, I think, we're in that little sweet spot right now where they've got the people that used to silence people like us have better things to do. It's kind of the cat's out of the bag. So we're not really damaging like we would have been back in the 90s, early 90s or 80s. We would have been silenced. Something would have happened. The other thing is, like, my job that I did of cargo engineering, I had a guy contact me that was out in the Mediterranean, worked on a cargo ship, and that he's like, dude, I do your job. He contacted me on Facebook. He said, I do your job that you did, that you're talking about. And I knew it. Like, he was like, you're describing exactly how I do my job. He's like, I literally do your job. And he said something about the tipping report. Like, don't forget when it's taller and heavy, you got to put the tipping. I said, no, I didn't have to, because anything over a meter went to the rear cargo, and they had to do the tipping report. So it's like, these are things that I don't know. I mean, I don't have any kind of cargo. I wasn't even really a mover. I'm a hardwood guy, craftsman. That's what I've done my whole life. So I had no experience in any of the cargo stuff, but I know the job and was able to kind of sit and talk to somebody, a professional, and hold my own with how to do it. So those memories bleed through. I guess, it's hard to forget something you did day in and day out.
Yeah, I know genetic testing from A to B, how you have to fill out the forms, how it's done, and how it works. I just know it in my brain. I didn't have to research that. It was easy to do. It was sent to another country, outsourced, and I had the results in 4 weeks because I knew the process from A to B to C to D, how it's done and how it's tested. And I knew exactly the variant even in my own genetic makeup that's mutated, because I could see that psychically. If I do a medical intuitive energy body scan, I wrote my DNA and I saw it energetically what the mutation was. And when the doctor told me the test results, I was not surprised because I already knew. So what we did up there comes back with us here in memories. And
yeah. However the technology works, however they do it, the blank slating, whatever they do, there are things that you just never forget. I mean, there's a form of memory that's not local to your body.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and some people can access it. Everybody can. There's times I wish I didn't. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to get on with my life here. And, there's a lot of traffic. I mean, you get it too. I'm sure you get a lot of people contact you and they want to go over their own experiences and what they do. And, I mean, like, I have a busy life. It's hard for me to follow this, around. Like you said, I don't do this for money. And sometimes I wish I didn't have to deal with it. But I'm glad, if anything, a lot of people have reached out to me and said, thank you. What you said really helps connect dots for me. There have been so many hundreds of people that contact me that have similar experiences. And so if you can help anybody, then I guess it's worth it.
Yeah, people ask me, how can I get my memories back? And I said, look, for me, it was 4 years of training, shamanism, Reiki, magic. I took all kinds of forms of training, energy, healing, psychic development. That's how I got my memories back. I never told anybody what I was doing behind the scenes to get any of these memories back. Now I'm talking about it because I did it on my own. I didn't go to a bunch of hypnotherapists. I only went one time to a hypnosis session. And after that, it helps me, but I needed to learn how to tap into it myself. So I studied with a shaman teacher to do it. He's now passed. And he left behind a lot of great work that he passed on to me. And that's how I did it for myself. And I did it for a few of my other friends, but more for past life stuff for them. But it works. And that's how I tap into memory. So I say, just go to a good hypnosis therapist or learn to do it on your own. Because if you want to tap into anything in 0 point or out there in the universe, you can. We all have the ability. Just learn the hypnosis techniques, learn the psychic development, do it for yourself. If you have something that you need to remember, to tap into, to deal with, just learn it. Just do it, or find somebody who can do it for you, who's reputable.
I found that everybody has a lot of common denominators, when they start to get memories bleed through. Even if they don't want to remember, they still have like very powerful dreams of very powerful events that happened. They'll remember something emotional. Even if it doesn't make sense, they'll go, man, it was such a different dream though. I dreamt it was so different and it was very powerful, like it's just a different feeling. And what it is, they're memories. They're bits and fragments of memories that happened before or after a event, like whether they got hurt or whatever happened, like a major event. And so people always have that. And I always say, look, you might want to remember, but that person that you were might have wanted to forget. And that sometimes I wanted to remember. When I was on the other side, I didn't want to forget any of it. I wanted to remember. Both of me wanted to remember. And then what triggered me, I didn't go through any hypnosis. I had got an MRI. I was having bad headaches in the back of my head, and I got an MRI scan. My health isn't great anymore. I'm falling apart quick since I've come forward. I mean, the last 3 years has really taken its toll. I am falling apart, and which is whatever. It's fine, but that kicked it off. It was about 2 weeks after the MRI that it all came back, and big chunks. And I still remember things. Like 20 years is a long time. People go for longer, whatever, but 20 years is a lot that goes on. That's an entire lifetime worth of stuff. And, you don't just recall it all at once.
No, it comes back in bits and pieces. And I was actually falling apart. That's why I did learn the self-hypnosis, because I knew something in that Mars cybernetics labs service, something medically could help me improve my own health. So because I was falling apart, I learned the shamanism and the hypnosis and the past life stuff. And I found the medical information through the hypnosis sessions to actually help myself here on Earth to improve my health so I could get out of bed and function. Even just daily life stuff, it helped me. So I call it actionable data. What I got out of my head, I could actually use on myself. So, but that's not like that for everybody else, because they just get memories from the hypnosis, and they did that on Mars, they did this somewhere else in the SSP, and it helps to deal with their trauma, whatever. For me, what I actually got out of the hypnosis medically was useful to me. So I'm so happy that I could use it. That all that service was not for nothing. It actually is applicable here. And so I'm happy. That's enough for me. I don't do hypnosis on myself anymore to get more and more and more, because I don't want to be addicted to the more.
Yeah. Well, and it could get out of control, I suppose.
Can, because once you've got the major bulk of it, sometimes you want all of it, but I don't want all of it, because I'm here on this planet, so I have a life to live, and I don't want all that stuff that I did up there to leak into my current life, because my life is different here. I have family, I have responsibilities, you have family, you have responsibilities, so
Right.
you don't let what happened up there interfere with what's going on here, right?
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I mean, I was the same person, but I had a different set of habits. I was a different person. I had a different, it was a different career, everything. I think that in the short term, we might get a disclosure about the satanic network that runs everything. That's the cabal that's been in charge. They were the ones that took me in the beginning and then sold me off to the corporations. But I think that that's going to be our first real disclosure, and I'm kind of scared that if we don't, I'm kind of scared that either the presidency could change hands or not, or just something could happen and it not disclose. Like, I would love for them to say, look, we did all these arrests, this is what's been going on, and have that kind of report in the news after the virus stuff calms down. But I think it's still kind of a dicey moment. It feels like it, at least. It feels like it's not going smoothly.
No,
And,
it's not.
that just shows how entrenched and how ingrained they were. They were entrenched. And it's just scary that they made it this far, to be honest. So I think that might be our first disclosure, that that's what's been going on, that there has been so many things behind the scenes. And we really need to see the media change. Like, there needs to be new policies. When you see the media straighten up, that's how you'll know, because right now they're kind of unchecked, and they're the ones behind it, the programming. So once the programming changes and they stop trying to make us fight amongst ourselves, that's going to be actually the only real sign that we're going to get a disclosure. It's going to have to be that the media is going to have a major change, and otherwise it's just not going to. Otherwise, it's the same old people that have been lying to us for the last 1,000 years, and they're still in charge. So until they get out of there and you see the media changed its tune, we're not out of the woods.
No, we're not. We're in the critical 10-year period. Like, this is happening. This is now. Where are we headed in 10 years?
Right.
So
Well, I'm hoping it's sooner than that. I'm hoping it's in the next 4. We'll see. I've got my fingers crossed. I'm really hoping for the best. I've done other interviews where there was other guests that said that they didn't believe in any of the Q stuff, and I don't really follow. I'm not up on it enough to really just throw facts at it. But I'm kind of a fan. I think the Q stuff is real. It doesn't make sense that it wouldn't be. That it wouldn't, they would go through all that trouble for the effect they're getting, because Q really ultimately isn't that super powerful politically. You know what I mean? Like, Q isn't going to change an election.
no, it's not.
So it's not that big of a movement. So really, the only sense for Q to happen is for what they're saying it is, that he's letting out information about these arrests and everything. So if it plays out the way it's supposed to, things are going to be really good here very fast.
Well, anything in reality can change, and it's all malleable for change. So Q drops open reality to people. Oh, this might be happening. This might be happening. Consider it. It's to open up your mind, literally, to what's going on behind the scenes. Because
right, and your subconscious, your subconscious, I think, does a lot of work while you're asleep and I think there's a lot of communication between everybody while you're asleep subconsciously, and it does a lot of work for what's going to happen. I think that a lot of times when something happens in your life, you've already got permission subconsciously from other people, You know, when you meet somebody or when something's going to happen in the future, an event, I think that there's permissions that happen prior to that in the dream state, in a higher focus state. And so, I mean, if you can't get those permissions if you don't know. There's
Exactly.
zero known about it.
And I've had like memories on these planetary corporations labs, cybernetics labs, that this COVID virus, that's not the worst of a pandemic that could happen. They had been making werewolf viruses, vampire viruses, and zombie viruses. So you could do vampire, you could do werewolf, or you could do zombie, and you can release that on a planet anywhere, and it'll just kill millions of people because it mutates people. So
That's scary. Well, and you
yeah,
know, the other thing is this virus actually is this is our first one where everybody's actually defending themselves. Everything we've ever had in the past, you know, what the Spanish flu and all those other ones, I think the rest of the world really didn't defend against it. They did their social distancing where it was, but the world was moving so slow that the virus didn't travel like it does now. I think this is our first time that people are actually arming themselves against it. Like the company I work for, we've gotten all new air cleaners. You know, we've got new services that disinfect everything. There are new protocols. You got to wear a mask, got to wear a glove. Instead of two guys using one tool, each guy gets a tool now, and the other one don't touch it. So this is going to stop. This is going to be this kind of like we're getting defense against a virus like you're talking about, like a really deadly one. So I mean, you know, maybe it's just for a fighting chance. Who knows?
yeah, it could have accidentally been released. I believe it is genetically engineered, and it was concocted. So
Yeah, so much. So look, I am so like I have a busy Facebook. I'm sure you do too. You know,
mhm.
not everybody does, but you know, I see a lot of stuff. You know, a lot of people post a lot of stuff, and it's like out there. Some stuff I go, some stuff is it's obvious that it's disinfo, and a lot of other stuff you go, oh, maybe, but you don't know. And the thing is, there's so much of it now. It's really ramped up in the last couple months that you don't know if it's real or not. You really have to take everything with a grain of salt. And here's what I do. I always have my little checklist of things that, you know, well, could have been possible. You know, like this makes sense, and here's why. But I'll tell you right now, the virus coming out of Wuhan with the 5G rollout at the same time, and 5G being canceled in the stimulus money, the stimulus package canceled 5G. So I mean, okay, so they don't have anything to do with it. The 5G doesn't cause the virus. It's not bioengineered, whatever. These are some very huge coincidences about what's going on. You know, I mean, very huge. And you got to look at what's going on with China. China really shrugged it off. A lot of people, I've heard accounts. I mean, they had a lot of people die, but there's a lot of people. But most of the people in the world live in China, so for them it was kind of like a small thing. They've really shrugged it off. Their stock market didn't get damaged. The whole world got financially damaged way more than China did. So I mean, it points, you know, where there's smoke, there's fire, kind of thing. You know, like I don't want to say something and then have people run with it and make memes and stuff. But what I'm saying is, where there's smoke, there's fire, and there's a lot of smoke around this virus. There's a ton of it. It doesn't seem like some natural thing that happened at the same time that all this other stuff happened, and then the place where it originated really didn't get hurt by
Yeah.
it.
Well,
The capital city, Beijing, they say there's no cases.
wow.
It's only a few hundred miles away from Wuhan. So that doesn't make any sense that it got all over here. Like where I'm at, Detroit, it's got it really hammered. I'm 300 miles, I'm 250 miles north of Detroit. We've got it here. So that doesn't make sense that we're in a country where there's a billion people and they had thousands and thousands and thousands of people, in fact, 100,000 people infected in one city that 100 miles away or 200 miles away that nobody got it. And that city is where all the leaders are. So there's some, like I said, is it damning? Yes. Is it factual? Is it conclusive? No. Can you conclude from that? No. But it's smoking guns kind of stuff. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And there's a lot of smoke around China, coming out of China right now.
And that's where you have to dip into it and dig deep into information and sift through it to figure out, connect the breadcrumbs. Like Q says, connect the breadcrumbs, connect the drops, connect everything, research for yourself. this information, whatever you're wanting to know about. Research it before saying fact or fiction or whatnot.
You know, the other thing about that, like I said, the media is just, I feel so bad for people that swallow the media hook, line, and sinker, because there are still so many. Still, basically, most people believe everything hook, line, and sinker from the media. And you can tell, it dawned on me that there's 3 major networks. There's 2 more other semi-networks that are giving it. They're all owned by the same people. And if there was we have a 2-party system. China has a 1-party system. So we have a 2-party system. So if one party that they want in, they'll have 2 networks praise them. And then you got to think there's going to be 100 million people that don't want to hear that. So the other network down is a con, and they cash in on the ratings. They're getting money from the audience. And then what the other party does, then the other 2 networks switch, and there's always one network that supports, that goes the opposite of what they want. Whatever the media is trying to get you to believe, they have one out of those networks that is the opposite. And they're making money on the people that don't believe it. So that's all that is. They're cashing in on that rating. But the other 2 are overwhelming, like it's a little bit every day. If you heard, if CNN put anybody on there and said as many damning things as they do about the president of the United States, if they put anybody on there, anybody, Elvis Presley, anyone, Sister Teresa, whoever, doesn't matter, the most righteous, Jesus himself, if they put that kind of spin on him, everybody would hate him. There's nobody that can withstand that kind of criticism. It just never ends. And even when they're not criticizing him directly, they're criticizing around him so that it caves in, so that it points back. It's so obvious when you know it, when you've learned it. And so it seems like, I mean, how long is it going to be until we get a real news network, till the news goes back to being the news?
Yeah, and I mean, look, when the news reports on President Trump being this and that, when you go in reality to find it, half of it you can't find that to verify any of it because it's BS.
Okay, so what happened was, I guess early on in the United States, when TV came out, they passed laws that said that the news couldn't lie. They had to corroborate their stories, and they couldn't lie, especially politically. They could not tell a lie. They could get fined for it. And there was actually, jail was on the table. This was a federal law by Congress. At the end of the Reagan administration, one of the last few bills in the last year that Reagan was in, they got rid of that. And the news can literally lie to you blatantly. They can make up a story and run with it, and there's no penalty. That was taken away in the Reagan administration, and it slowly ramped up. And today it's just crazy. I mean, it's just off the charts about the BS that they do. And it's really sad. And like I said, like, it's obvious to me, you know, I'm older, but to somebody that grows up in this atmosphere, if somebody grows up and that's the news, they don't, you know, a lot of people are less discerning. And it's heartbreaking to see it.
Yeah, I don't read much news. I don't look at much news. Sometimes I look at what Google Analytics shows me. And that's interesting news, actually. What Google chooses, I don't know why. It's always something in Google Analytics that's interesting. Maybe because I set it up a certain way to filter stuff for me to look at that's meets my criteria. I think that's why I see things that are more important. It's being reported on. That's not the usual fluff. So you can filter out your news, what you specifically want to listen to, what you don't, if you use Google and other platforms.
I didn't watch it at all. I put it all away a couple years ago, and it was really good. But just recently, because where it's a national emergency, you kind of have to watch. You know, especially when they first did the shutdowns, you have to watch the news because it was emergency, and it's like, man, it's even worse than how I left it.
Yeah, I don't watch it on TV. I get articles and streams through Google of what I specifically filter, of what I want to read, and what I don't want to read is filtered out because I don't want all of it. So I only use Google Analytics for my news. I don't use Facebook News.
So yeah, and how long do you think this will all last?
Well, I think mid-August. Honestly, mid-August, because how long can you keep companies shut? how long can you keep people locked into their homes? The economy has to reestablish. People have to go back to work. People have to work, earn money. Look, how much can the governments, US, Canada, how much can they keep on paying out the stimulus packages? It's great that they are, because
Mhm.
at least it keeps a roof over your head.
Yeah. I think they're
So
approving the unemployment for 18 weeks here. You're in Canada, right?
yeah, that's
I,
16 weeks, and they got everybody got 2,000. Who earned 5,000 last year, self-employed or, working for somebody, they got right away 2,000. They applied for it, they got 2,000 every month.
so we got the stimulus check and for your family of 1,200 each, and then 500 a kid on your taxes. And then if you get unemployment, they add it on. So most people, if they don't make a lot of money, they get a couple $100 a week unemployment, and then it's plus $600 a week. So if you were working and were laid off or your work is shut down because of the virus, you automatically get your base rate plus $600. And I think it's like 18 and a half weeks they approved it, everybody for that. So people that don't have a job that can't get that, they're still getting the stimulus money. So I mean, it's quite a bit of money when you think about everybody. When you talk about the whole place. And so it's good. Yeah, you're right. How long can that go on for?
And I mean, this even the stimulus stuff, that's all taxed. That has to be taxed out of you at the end of the
Oh,
day.
no, I think the stimulus check is tax free. It's
Okay.
not going to get taxed, but I think the I'm not sure about unemployment, but
Yeah.
the stimulus check is tax free. What we're wondering, my employer and I, is when it's all done, like when everybody goes back to work, everybody's got a lot of money that they haven't been able to spend just on groceries. So I think there's going to be an initial spending, like everybody, it's going to go good. But after that, I mean, there's still a lot of restaurants that are going to close. They're not going to come back, and a lot of people are going to have to find new work. And so there's going to be a kind of a dip from that. That's what I'm guessing. That's what we're guessing. Like you got to brace for it because, I mean, everything's on hold. The whole world's on hold. When's the last time this happened? Never.
Well, there was the Black Plague, but that's Middle Ages. You can't
Yeah,
really
right. It was
compare.
that was a different world, like it was different. So they were kind of on their own anyway. It wasn't as developed as we're all
Yeah,
connected so closely now.
we're more sophisticated than they were. They were just dying by the dozen. We couldn't even bury anybody. People were just getting sick. Millions died because they didn't have sanitation. They didn't have proper methods of containing the plague.
Hmm.
We, even though this seems like it's getting out of control, we have some methods of containing it to make sure it doesn't spread. Like social distancing, okay, it seems draconian. We're on lockdown and we're on social distancing, but at the end of the day, nobody wants to catch any form of corona. So I believe in social distancing, and I believe in staying home if you don't have to go out and party, go out, meet people by the dozen. Okay, stay at home. It's not going to hurt you to clean the house or to do something that needs to be taken care of in the house.
We would just go for
Yeah.
a ride around the neighborhood. I'll just get in the car and drive, and you don't become when I get a little stir crazy because I tell you, the first week and a half was really nice to lay around and just catch up on rest. I've been overworked, and a week after that, it's like I'm just stir crazy. There's only so much you can do.
Yeah. And do you have anything new, that experiences or memories or anything that you'd like to discuss?
Yeah, I'm nothing brand new. I still have dreams about my time out there. I still have a lot of people contacting me about stuff that they do. It's hard to get people to share. It's hard to get people to talk about it. It was hard for me to talk about it in the beginning, especially the being a victim of the sex slave. You know, and it was very hard to talk about. And they do things to you. They program you on the way out to not talk about it, to not read about it, and if you do, to get sleepy or something or some side effect. A few other ones that aren't as nice as being sleepy. And so it's really hard when people get a hold of me and I'll start going back and forth. but it's hard for them to talk about it. A lot of people have a lot of fragmented memories. They just don't want to open up, and a lot of it is difficult to talk about. So I still go through that a lot. Still meeting new people all the time that are coming, contact me. People send me links endlessly, and I tell you, I've had my phone hacked a bunch of times already. My computer's probably been hacked too, and so I don't open any links. I don't click any links at all. I've learned that. I've learned incredibly. It's very easy to hack somebody's stuff and get all their info. And it's happened to me a bunch since I've started talking publicly and in my own personal life. I mean, nothing to do with the interviews. So because of that, people just, I meet them. They go, "Hi, nice to meet you." Boom, and there are 3 links in there to movies and stuff. I don't watch any. I never click on any link.
Me neither.
And so I don't do any research to this anymore. I have enough research up here. I don't need to see anybody else's account. I remember what it was like just fine. And it's like, recently I've been having some weird dreams. I guess, everybody's been catching up on sleep. So everybody's getting, I heard for a long time, everybody's having these vivid dreams. And it's like, well, you're finally getting sleep. You're getting a nap in the day and sleeping. And, but I've been having the same thing. I have dreams about bugs, the bugs coming through the door and, biting me and stuff. And, but I haven't had any real contact that I'm aware of.
Mm-hmm. I usually just block out my dreams because I don't dream. I put a program in to block it out energetically because I don't want to dream at night. I want a good night's sleep and just without dreams. I don't want to dream about bleed through memories. Honestly, I've had enough of that. I prefer not to remember anymore as much as I can. So
well, like I said, I kind of on track, just trying to get into my own groove in my own life here. I still want to work on the book, but it's on hold right now. I got a lot of flack. There was a lot of people that said, if he's writing a book about it, he just wants money. He's BS.
No,
that's totally not fair because I get asked for it quite often.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, like weekly, on a weekly basis. When's your book coming out? I'm dying for your book. There's that, and then I'd like to get all of it out there that I don't talk about in interviews that is inappropriate to speak of in an interview. Like I'd like to make the book just, not rated and put everything that I remember in it so that, for like a historical sake. There's that. And then, I'm not really after the money about it, but I'd like to get it off my chest.
Yeah, I'm also writing my own book about my experiences, and it's taking a long time because I want to write one book. I don't care if it's 500 pages or 1,000, one book. I don't want to write a series, put it all in one spot, put it out there unrated. That's it. So it takes a while to do.
I said this before to other people that also when I write down, like talking about it's one thing, but when I actually write down some of the torture, some of the things I went through, you totally relive it, and it's painful. It hurts. It's a very difficult thing to do, to recall going through some of the things that I went through, and it's made it very hard to do. It's just not like it's like writing an essay or a story about. It's not like writing fiction, when you're writing something very bad, and it was you, and you can remember actually the visual of it. It's very difficult to do.
And it's a process, and writing a book is not easy. Whoever says just put it out there on words and on paper and publish it, they have no idea. It's not right. It's not easy to write a book about these things. It takes time. There's a lot of memories. There's a lot of experiences to sort through, to put it all in order, to write it. And if you, like you said, if you have traumatic experiences and memories, you relive that and you remember it. So you have to take your time with it. If your book comes out, it comes out. If it comes out 5 years down from now and everything's been disclosed, it's still important information because it's your information. Mm-hmm. So this is about you, and it's about your book, and it's about your truth. Whenever you put it out there, you put it out there. We'll just be thankful to see it.
I'm hoping to get some new art done soon. And I'd put that out there. I'm going to do, there's a conference. Well, I mean, everything's up in the air. Mm-hmm. I was going to go back to Australia to do a conference, this month. And that all got, because everything's shut down there too. Yeah. And later on, I think next February, next February of 21. Be doing a conference. I think the MegaCon or whatever it's called. It's early to put a plug in there, but I'm kind of excited. I'll be able to rub elbows with a lot of guys I haven't met, and so I want to revamp my whole thing. I'll go from A to B through my account, and I want to have some new art for that. So I am working on that. But it's kind of a hobby level at this point, just because my own life has got, I had a bunch of life changes too since this happened, and I'm playing catch up in my own life.
Yeah, because you have one life here. You live your life, and when you have free time to write the book, you write the book. If you're
Right.
busy taking care of yourself and your family, that's what's the most important thing
Mhm.
in this life, because you're not there anymore. You're not in the SSP. You're here, and your life is much more different than it was up there, because the reality is also different. You have kids, you have a family to take care of. I have a family, not kids, but a family to take care of as well. So I live my life. Haven't wrote the book for 4 months. I should write a little bit now, but I don't have time. Even though with this whole thing in the world, I'm busier than ever. So life goes on. We go on. We do
We'll
what we
see.
must.
I think we're going to get an early disclosure. I think we're going to get a life out there disclosure in the next 4 years. That's my guess. That's my hunch. I think we're going to get something, like they're going to discover a ruin, or like they're going to give us an official on the news disclosure of life out there, intelligent life. So we'll see what form it takes, but I'm guessing it's going to be right around the next moonshot. I think that was the first plan, and they ended up killing Kennedy about it, and they went through the moonshot and then shut it down. And I think they're going back to the moon so that they can continue the original plan they had. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, and when you talk about disclosure, there's a lot of different disclosure that you could put out. There's the ETs, there's the SSP programs from the 1940s, 30s, the German stuff, then the US Army SSP stuff, Russia stuff. There's so much, and life on other planets, anti-gravity technology.
Life extension, the 20 and back tech, time travel.
Yes.
Where they've got the Germans, where they're at, the colonies throughout the solar system, the colonies outside of the solar system, nearby stars, the portal that we're not allowed to use by Jupiter that goes to other galaxies, other extragalactic history. They have their own internet that we can get access to. I mean, it's an onion for sure. There's a lot. They're going to start out with something stupid like, we found these ruins that somebody built on the moon. Look at this. Somebody had to build this. It's going to be something along those lines, or even the bacteria, like methane in an exoplanet. We found methane. There's got to be life there. Boom.
Yeah.
Like it'll roll fast, but definitely they're not going to tell us everything all at once, and they never will.
Yeah.
I mean, not for a very long time.
Yeah, look, you're not going to get a holographic medical pod anytime soon. You're not going to get a replicator, and you're not going to get a teleportation transporter in your home anytime soon. People are saying, those holographic medical pods will be released in a couple of years. It could change my body. I could do this and that. I don't believe any of that is coming out anytime soon. I've seen the tech in the cybernetics labs. Even I wasn't allowed to get in the tech and heal myself. I was just the end user to put human biological cyborgs to get fixed in whatever damage they had out in the field.
It was the same way on Ceres. You had to have clearance. Somebody had to clear you to get fixed. If you were disfigured, you had to rock with it. You had to go with it. Somebody had to give you clearance to go in and get fixed. So it was the same way up there for them. But there's going to be a certain level where, obviously we're going to get a lot of information at one time after a disclosure. Once the snowball starts rolling, if it's going to be in my life, I don't know. Our kids, whenever I look at a little kid nowadays, I think how lucky they are. They're going to grow up into a beautiful world of extraterrestrials. When they're my age, they're going to have extraterrestrials that they are real to them.
It would be nice to see 3D printing and at least hand. If you lost your hand, you could get 3D printed hand.
Well, the replicating for the food will be a big one. I imagine they'd start that early, and they're going to switch the power. Everything will turn electric. we'll get power, free power, but who knows how fast that'll happen and who's going to still be in charge. That's the other thing. Like, think that that's kind of a big deal to them is the power structure, preserving some type of power structure. So we're really seeing a struggle right now go on behind the scenes. People, if you're aware of it, you can see it. People that aren't aware, like I said, people that believe the news word verbatim don't have a clue. They really don't have a clue. But if you know between the lines, if you have the backdrop of it, like me, I know the satanic, pedophile, government stuff is real. The Pizzagate stuff, I know it's real because I was a part of it. I was a victim of it, and so that was real to me. And that was, when I came out with my testimony, I was I had never saw any of that information before. There was no, this was 2015. So there was no Hillary email. There was none of that stuff about the Pizzagate, none of that, nothing. And then that all came out at 16 or 17. And so I was blown away that was it. So for me, that's like, unfortunately, a point of corroboration. But I think we're going to get past that and just see. I hope that those people don't come out on top in this struggle, because they're not gonna do anything good for us.
Well, same for me. When I came out in 2016 talking about the cybernetics labs and nanotechnology Neuralink implants being put in people's brains in these Mars labs, there wasn't information coming out that Elon Musk opened up a new company called Neuralink, and they're making Neuralink implants for people's brains in the 2020s. That stuff wasn't out. So I was the first one to talk about, human biological cyborgs being built on Mars as soldiers and scouts, and Neuralink implants to pilot ships remotely and to communicate together telepathically through these implant interfaces in your brain. And now all this stuff is coming out that, Elon Musk opened his Neuralink company in 2017, and it became official in, the rollout in 2018, what they're actually doing. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I was the first to talk about that technology in 2016. I didn't know about it. I was just talking about my own experiences.
It'll go far. There's definitely a lot of tech. And then the other thing, on the other side of that coin, a lot of the time, and a lot of people think that during my time up there on Ceres with ETs running high-tech stuff, there were really a lot of things that weren't that weren't that different than here. And in fact, there were a lot of places that were grimy. Like there were a lot of things that were not as good. It was a military ran facility, so there were a lot of things that were not maintained and not like, even the spaceship, even on the ship, there were places where stuff broke down and they fixed it and they didn't clean it up. And, it smelled like hydraulic fluid for the rest of forever after. So there's a lot of things, there's a lot of technology that, it wasn't like Star Trek where it's like spotless everywhere. And there's a lot of technology, a lot of things that are not that technologically advanced about the colonies. So, that's going to be another pill to swallow too. I think people are going to expect it to be much better than what it is.
Yeah, I mean, the Mars bases that I was on were pretty advanced, pretty clean. But if you step outside the base, there's nothing really out there that's terraformed. You still have to wear an environmental suit when you go out, because they give the basic amenities and the base and the advanced tech and all of that in the labs. But once you step out of that, it's a whole other story. Mars is not terraformed.
The cities in Ceres were there were a lot of them that were older. And so what happened was it's just like cities here, where the inner city is older, so it's kind of run down and not well made, things are old and aged, and then they built newer places that were nicer. And it was like that. So you could go to other places that were like brand new, that were beautiful, but there were a lot of places that were older and kind of ran down, that were underwhelming. For what you think a colony in space would look like, just cement with cracks in it kind of stuff. But I remember Mars being pretty, even the forward base I was in was a beautiful place. I mean, beautiful is maybe the wrong term, but it was nice. It was like new, and it looked more like a school. than a military base in the time that I was there. And then the city that I went through, I was in like a hotel, looked like hotel hallways for most of it, but there were times that I got out in the open. It was beautiful. There was a lot. There was art. There was landscaping. There were, all inside, all underground. But there was, running water. There were things. It was pretty. Mars was a lot more people friendly, aesthetic. It had a better aesthetic to it than the Ceres colony. The Ceres colony, they worked on it. They had their areas where they were greeting ETs, and they were kind of trying to roll out the red carpet for ETs is what it was. So anywhere an ET went, that was nice. But there were places that we went that were not so great, that were older, that were, yesterday's colony.
Mm-hmm. So it really depends, different places, different upkeep setups.
Mm-hmm.
So how's your life now? Are you okay?
Yeah, well, like a little bored, I mean, I've been off work for, I had 2 weeks off. It's funny that the day, I think it was March 12th was when they shut everything down, right around March 12th. And the 2 weeks before that, I had 2 weeks off for work. We took a 2-week vacation, not like a staycation. Like I had 2 weeks off just as a rest. It just, the opportunity came, so I jumped on it. And then March 12th, it everything shut down. I couldn't go back to work. So I've been off over a month. And it's getting all, it was great at first, but it's getting all, I'm looking for stuff to do. I think this is a great time, though. You got to think about, there's a lot of people that never been faced with this. When you get into your adult life, you don't have a lot of freedom, really. I mean, you're paying bills and going to work, it's like once you're on the treadmill, you don't get a month off very rarely, for most people. And so I think it's funny to me. It's actually kind of heartbreaking to see that a lot of people don't have anything to do with their time. How retirement kills people. People retire and then they die in 6 months because because they weren't ready for it. They don't stay busy. It's kind of like we're all in that kind of groove right now. Like I've gained weight. I'm out of shape from it. I've just been laying around and I'm trying to keep busy, but there's only so much you can do.
Yeah, for me, it's the opposite.
Really? Since this happened, you've been busy?
I've always been busy. I've always found something to do. So for me, I haven't really noticed the world change except restaurants and stores close. That's the only change for me. So, because I just have a huge list of things to do, and every day I wake up, go take a shower, eat, get dressed, do what's on your list, and keep busy. Keep always busy.
I'm very hopeful that in the next few months, so I mean, we're in April 20th right now. I'm very hopeful that in the next few months, we're going to see some positive changes. Like not only going back to work, not only things opening up, but positive things that happen because of this, like people that are going to do good things. And I think even after that, we're definitely going to get, with the coincidental news, the way, like I said, fine, you know what I mean? It's fine. The virus is random and the 5G doesn't, fine. Okay. If you just go by what the news says, you can still tell we're going to get some kind of curveball out of all this. There's going to be there's going to be a conflict or whatever. And plus we have the election. The election's going to be crazy. So, but I think we're going to get some positive stuff. I'm very hopeful. Anytime that there's a reset, a change, it's the opportunity to come out of it with an improvement, so I'm looking forward to some big improvements in everybody's life.
Well, I mean, I think you were in an interview with Randy, with Laura, where he said that there has to be some kind of a disclosure to happen. I think you both discussed that. Or somewhere he said within the next 26 to 24 months, his brigadier general from the Marine Corps said that they're allowing some disclosure about something huge, he thinks it's SSP. So that
and now we've got the Space Force is really starting to take shape. First, it was just being funded and it was appropriated for. Now it's actually got personnel, so it's starting to take shape. We're definitely going to see some things, but I mean, until your neighbor that only watches the news and believes it all, that thinks the system that they're living in is actually real, and that there's fair and justice for them, that they think that they have a fair shot. Until those people get told what's been going on, you know, until they go, whoa, you know, like that's been going on all this time. Until those people can snap out of that, and until we see the mainstream media really stop shitting us, taking a dump on us, until we see that, we're not, there's really no big change. There's really no, you know what I mean? There's no freedom, there's nothing. Until we see those changes happen, there's no change yet. So hopefully that happens soon. Hopefully that happens really soon, that, you know, the people that are owning everything, you know, get in a row, get in line, and we go through all this together. And, you know, because the whole world's going to be it's going to be super cool, man, when it's all said and done, when it's all done. And it's not if, it's when. Like they can hide it for another 100 years. It doesn't matter. 1,000 years from now, we're going to be a disclosed society. We're going to be a spacefaring society.
Mm-hmm.
It's not if, it's when. So
yeah,
it's going to be really cool when it happens.
And something's always bound to slip in somewhere, and something's bound to come out somewhere sooner or later. So they can't keep everything on disclosure, on lockdown. Something will come out, whether that's pedogate, whether that's ETs, whether that's holographic medical pods, replicators. Something will pop out.
We're at the point technologically now where you don't need to be a government to have high-tech stuff. And so pretty soon, guys that in their garage are going to be able to make things that can discover ET life. You know, like that's where we're at. So they have to either kill us or tell us. And that's where we're at. In the next 20 years, there's no hiding it. There'll be no hiding anymore. Somebody that's not in the fold is going to have proof that there's life up there. It's just that easy. There's, you know, the astronomy field has the technology now with things that they've invented only in the last 10 years. And it's a matter of putting the parts together so they can look at exoplanets. We never had exoplanets before. They can look at exoplanets and see if there's chemical makeup in the atmosphere and if there's life there. So that's a reality of it. They have to tell it. We have to have a disclosure, or they have to bomb us back into the Stone Ages. And I don't think that's going to happen.
No. And we have communication. There's a lot of satellites up there, like what we're doing here on Zoom. You and I can get on Zoom anytime and talk about anything and everything. And a lot of companies right now, they have people working from home. They're using Zoom. They're using other teleconferencing technology to be in touch with each other. Even if you're in another part of the world, in another country, you can still talk and communicate and share information. We are in a technologically information age era. We're going towards the singularity. This is the singularity point.
Right.
So we can get in contact with each other on a little smartphone or a tablet or a PC or a laptop, whatever. It's the possibilities are endless for communication. So companies are doing it. You can work from home now because of COVID. Some companies are allowing that, and it's working. I wish the live streaming companies that set up these interviews with everybody, where you have to go physically to the place, you have to fly out. I wish they'd set up something where you could just patch in virtually and get interviewed online. And they could edit it and put it out faster. I wish they could do that, because not everybody can travel. Some people who come out of these programs are sick. They're not healthy physically where they could travel out to another state in another country. They can't. So the only way they can share their testimonies through grassroots disclosure, to tape it on Zoom and put it out on YouTube. I wish these companies who do this actually have disclosure shows would put something together, like a teleconferencing unit, whatever, and get us all patched in for roundtables. Mm-hmm. They tape it, they edit it. Look, our audio and video is decent. Patch it in, put it out there for people to listen to.
Hopefully there's no censorship. You know, of all the interviews we've done, hopefully they're saved somewhere, because it would be a shame if they all just got wiped one day, because I think this is going to be important. The things I talk about on series, the things that you're talking about, are going to check out later after a disclosure. You know, like at some point they're going to be able to go there and see. Someone's going to go to series. Somebody right now that doesn't have access is going to get access and be able to go there. And they're going to need the things that I say, even if I'm wrong about a lot of it. You know, I can't go there and see. So
Well, and
I hope this stuff stays for a long time. I hope our interviews stay available for a long time.
me too. And I don't think you're wrong, because I can psychically sense when people are telling things to me, and your story checks out to me psychically. I don't pick up any deception. I don't pick up falsehood. I don't pick that up from you. That's why I keep asking you for interviews, because you're genuine to me. The way I read you, you're genuine. I'm not picking up
I search for
stupidity.
in my own head. Like I always think to myself, you know, like I want to prove it to myself because you go back to your life. I go back to my regular life where I'm driving a car and I forget about it. And then when I start thinking about it again, like, wow, I've got an interview coming up. And I go, wow, damn, it happened. You know, like, like I gotta still, it's like I gotta swallow that pill again. When I come out of my life and go do an interview and I get back in and I go, and I'm not rehearsing. Like before we talk, or you know, every interview I've ever done, I've not really rehearsed anything because it's all just memory. And so for me, I mean, like, how do I do that? It's weird. It's like a whole lifetime of stuff that is there that I didn't rehearse, that I didn't study for. You know,
Mhm.
that's why I don't study for it. But
Um, quick question. When you were doing the on Gaia, the show, do they give you like a script of pre-planned things they're going to ask you, or is it just random?
he
Like,
showed me. Okay, so he showed me like his clipboard, but they didn't want me to know what we were going to talk about next. Like he said, here's my clipboard. We're going to go into this, and then we're going to go and we're just going to film, and then we'll cut out what doesn't work later. But they didn't want me to know what they were going to talk about next because I didn't go there like Jason did. So Jason Rice went there and he did the lie detector test and he did the hypnosis and everything. Like he was there a long time. I was just there in and out in a couple days. Um, they asked me if I wanted to take a lie detector if I was going to come back and do more shows, and I said yes. But it never happened. You know, like I think because of the way that Gaia got accused of being connected with Luciferianism, and then my account of being exposed to Luciferianism, they kind of doesn't, you know what I mean? It's kind of like poking a beehive there. So that's why they cut that stuff out, and then they don't want me back for more to expand on it. And I get that, you know, it's just business sense. I mean, you can't. So most people that are unaware of how it is, you say anything Luciferian. If I mean, hypothetically, if I went on and said, you know, Ileana is a Luciferian, even though it's not true, and I have no evidence, you've never said anything, it doesn't matter. Thousands of people would instantly hate you.
mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like it's the
Yes.
new bad guy. It's just so easy to taint somebody. And so I don't blame them for steering clear of the subject. But for me, it's most of the evidence. Like when you're a skeptic and you talk to me and you go, where's your proof? That's the proof, is that the whole pedogate thing that I went through. You know what I mean? Like I was repeatedly raped. You know what I mean? Like as a child sex slave in Seattle for a Satanist billionaire that had access to these programs that bought me from a 20 back thing. So that's a hard thing to prove. That's a hard thing to just whip out of your pocket in every conversation about proof.
I
You
don't
know,
ask for your proof, because
right,
that's,
and you don't, but you get what I'm saying. Like extraordinary claims require extraordinary, you know, support.
yeah.
And you know, you too. I mean, you people have come down on you like prove it. You know, and I know you've had a lot of skepticism, and so it's hard. You want to just say, I want to show a picture, man, and say this, or I'd like to drop names, but I know better. You know, there's a lot of names I could drop about it that I won't because it's scary.
You don't
Uh,
want them coming after you, because when you stop, the way that I was taught, my SSP training, my supervisors taught me never drop locations, never drop names, because you can be dead and gone. Your family can be taken, you can be taken, you can be killed and not regenerated. You might not come back if you talk about very like specific things, places and names, politicians, et cetera, et cetera. So I get that. You can't name certain names and you can't give certain locations. I understand that. Same with me. You can't give proof of pictures or video because they would kill you if you showed that.
Yeah.
And they don't
So,
allow you to keep that stuff.
so yeah, and to answer your question, so they were trying to vet me as best they could at Gaia without keeping me there long enough for all that stuff. So they were flying from the hip, as far as the questions go. And I don't really have I start talking about one thing and then kind of go off on a tangent sometimes, and I never finish what I started to say. I do it a lot, but there's just so much to talk about. I mean, when you talk about what you remember, there's a lot of detail, and a lot of it, I'm afraid of it not making sense to people that are watching, so I kind of ramble sometimes.
And it's fine. You're here to tell your story. I don't censor it. I don't edit anything out because what you're saying is your story and you need to say it. This is just for the historical public record. This is not to make money. This is not to censor anybody. I've known you for a while. I believe your story, and you always have something genuine to bring to the table. So I think Gaia had you on because you have a good story to tell. It's too bad not all of it got told, but a lot of it did get told, which is important.
Yeah, and it got out to people that didn't know much about that stuff. So, what you did for a living up there and what you were exposed to is one piece of the puzzle. Other whistleblowers have other pieces of the puzzle. Not a lot of people have come forward to say that they were one of the slave class that worked. And so that existed, whether it still does now or if they're going to tell us about what's going on up there, people being abducted straight out of prison and then being used for slave labor, which is true. I mean, if they're going to come clean on that, who knows? But, I felt it was wrong what they did to me. The whole time I was up there, I felt it was wrong what happened to me. And I felt like if I was going to remember it, then I was going to tell people about it because, it deserves to be known.
Yeah, exactly. And, even though Gaia vetted you, and when you take a lie detector test, if you believe everything that you've experienced, it's going to come out as the truth because you believe it.
Right. If I took a lie detector test and failed, I don't feel that I would change my tune. And if I took it and passed, I don't feel that I would brag about it because ultimately I don't trust lie detectors that much because you can have anxiety and set it off, whatever. I've never taken one in my life, but I kind of don't want to put a whole lot of faith in it, but I'm not afraid of taking one,
Me neither.
Somebody wants to hook me up to one and ask me questions, sure.
Pay for it. You want us to show you proof? Pay for the lie detector test, pay for our fees, and we'll do it. Whether we pass or not, we can do it. It's like, even if I fail, I'd probably fail because I was nervous as heck, because I have anxiety.
You never know, but I'm not
Yes.
afraid to take it
No.
and go from there. But
Me neither. You can hook
I
me
think
up.
that there's enough evidence. If somebody really sits and does the homework on things that I've said, if I can sit down with somebody and really show the details, there's enough evidence to come away with it that it's all real.
Yeah, and so can I. In fact, I was just talking to somebody before our interview. I'm like, fact or fiction? Most likely fact, most likely fiction. There's things I could put in a report that, because I like to quantify and verify information, cybernetics, all that, Neuralink. I've read the books, nanotechnology, they're working on that. I know the titles of the books. I could put that in. People could go, it's expensive, it's $300, $400, those books, but they talk about how to do Neuralink implants in your brain, nanomedicine.
So there were a few types. So they did nano surgery on me, and there were a few types of it. They were getting me ready. It's hard for me to remember exactly when it was, but what it was, they injected me with nanites, and then they could work while I was laying on the table. In other words, there was a magnetic field that powered them, or some kind of field that powered the nanites from external, so they didn't have to carry their power source with them. And then when I was off the table, they shut the table off. The nanites were just inert, and you'd poop them out or pee them out or whatever. And then they had other they were telling me, you know, in conversation while I'm laying on the table, telepathically, just conversation. They were saying that other ETs, especially the Draco, the reptiles, had nanites that were the good ones. That's what they said. They got the good ones. They're very expensive. They're very rare nanites, and they stay in them 24/7. But you know, and that they're off the table. And I was still a kid at the time. I wasn't an adult getting that procedure done. But
Yeah.
there was quite a bit that happened with nanites. But that's what it was the ones that they were altering part of my physiology or building an implant. I don't know what they were doing exactly, but they only worked when I was on the table.
Yeah, my Neuralink nanite implants work 24/7 in my brain because it allowed me to interface with the holographic technology in the cybernetics labs. It allowed me to telepathically, synthetically communicate with others in the labs or whatever to remotely pilot ships and send telemetry to different databases. So those Neuralink implants were part of my daily function to do the job and to live. That's part of how it was on Mars, where I was.
I think that's how the speech tech worked, that there was an implant, that there was actually hardware in my head that let them turn on and off the translator, and then as well as a lot of the telepathy. I think I think that they altered to go to Mars. I think they alter your lung structure as well. I think they do things with nanotechnology that alter your lungs so you can breathe easier in the atmosphere there.
Yeah, because the atmosphere is heavy. Like I lived in Kelowna, BC, and I'm like, it was such high altitude. I didn't last there, and I came back home with my tail between my legs. So I was given drug serums on Mars to be able to withstand that atmosphere. That's from the memories, from the hypnosis.
Wow, right. I remember there was oxygen that they gave too. We carried a little bit of oxygen. It wasn't on all the time, but when you exerted yourself, it would squirt up oxygen for you to breathe, just a little bit.
Yeah, so there's like bits and pieces of our memories of how things work because I can't live in high altitude. I don't know if in Michigan it's high altitude or
it's not. No.
Okay, there you go. So it's like you're used to one system of atmospheric living, and then when you're put on another planet with a higher dense, higher dense atmosphere and oxygen deprivation, of course they're going to give you something to make up for the loss. They have to for you to survive. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to breathe on your own that easily.
There's a lot of things that I don't remember that were trivial to me then, and I think that the mundane stuff, like how many paces it was to the other side of the room, are very hard to think of. Like I said, I tend to remember the emotional stuff, but I've been going through some artwork for the cargo bays, and when I do the math of the sketch, the actual cargo bay was really the main cargo bay doors were actually really small in proportion to the rear of the ship, and it just drives me nuts that I can't remember it. That there's things I can't remember. I would say that for anybody that's trying to remember stuff, trying to remember things similarly, that don't give up, don't get frustrated, because there's a lot of things that I do remember that panned out, like I said, like places on Earth, and there's definitely enough there to support it. So the things you can't remember are probably natural too, and keep coming.
Yeah, it comes back in bits and pieces, and if I can't remember something, I will go to the self-hypnosis to literally sit there for 2-3 hours and get that memory out of my head. And I record, and the self-hypnosis, it's a script, a hypnosis script that I recorded in my voice. It's running on the computer, and I'm recording the session on a tape recorder or the cell phone. So both are running.
Oh, wow. So you're doing it all to yourself?
Yes.
And how long does it take? You said
for me it could take between 1 hour to 3 hours for that to do.
So you do get into an actual hypnotic state,
I like
one. The visual, the animations, the swirly things?
No swirly things, just listening to my voice going through the hypnotic script and I have specific prompts to trigger memory that I wrote into my script to get as much detail out of it as I can. And I always record it. I always record it because then I could just write out a written script for presentations. Because all the presentations and interviews that I've done, that's where I got the memories from, the self-hypnosis.
Interesting.
And I put notes from my hypnosis sessions into the presentations. I just never told people how I did it before.
Yeah.
But now, like, people are asking, well, how did you do it? This is how I did it.
Well, that's significant because a lot of people don't want to trust somebody else, especially in this. Now, it's one thing to hypnotize and try to remember, you know, the car accident you got into as a kid. It's a whole other thing to remember your time on Mars. So a lot of people don't want to even hire a hypnosis person unless, you know, there's so many people that specialize in that. Not really. And you just don't know who to trust. So it's like a shopping thing. And a lot of people really want to do the hypnosis. So, I mean, that's a good tip. I'm going to pass that on to try to, you know, find a script, a way to go into it. Hypnosis is all pretty basic, you know, I mean, you're just getting into a different focus state and then you're letting somebody guide you, a voice. And that's, who else can you trust better than yourself on a script and a recording? So it seems like you can really tailor make it to do a lot of good.
I've tried going to other hypnotherapists, like I did the QHHT. It was nice, but I didn't really get into the vibe the way the practitioner was guiding me into it. So, and I've tried a bunch of hypnosis scripts online with other people's voices and just didn't do anything for me, didn't do anything at all. And I pace myself with my own voice to just give cues and prompts and in between the speaking to allow myself to really process the memories that are coming forward. So, and I was taught how to do it. I was taught by my shaman teacher. And so I just flipped the script. Instead of past life, I flipped it to hypnosis. So, and I worked 3 years on that one script to just do it hypnosis instead of past life regression.
And you ask yourself questions.
Yeah, I do.
Interesting.
So, yeah. And it works. I mean, it works because nothing else worked. So, and like I said, everything comes from those hypnosis scripts, notes. Everything
Really?
that I've regained memory-wise comes from that. That's the
I'm
source.
thinking maybe you should make a YouTube for people to go to that could use your hypnosis for them.
I tried that and I got a lot of positive results out of that. That was actually the practicum that I had to do with my shaman teacher for that. And I got a lot of good out of it and I got a lot of negative comments out of that. So I took it down after a while.
I see.
People, I got more good out of it than anything else, but I took it down because really at the end of the day, I do want people to learn on their own as well, not just for me to make it so easy for them.
Right. Whenever a video comes out, the people that want to see it first.
Yeah.
So for the first few weeks, everybody that watches it is actually into it.
Mm-hmm.
Then the negative comments come out. After a couple of months of it sits there, they come out and bury it in negative comments so that your first 300 comments or however many that are all people that are great, that praise, I love this, thank you, I'm sharing, those get buried with 10,000 negative ones of people that don't even watch it. They watch 5 minutes of it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the practice. I think that's a good way to, because then if somebody else comes and looks at it, all they see are negative comments. They go, oh, I'm out of here. I'm not going to watch it. Well, and I think that's a good disinfo campaign.
Yeah, and it was a past life regression script. It wasn't even a hypnosis. Well, it's sort of hypnosis, but for a different, to access your past lives. Because I use a different hypnosis script for the secret space program stuff. But I've adapted it to make it so you can access your past life, your SSP memories, virtually anything. So it's a different script. I've retooled everything. You know, I've decided these are my scripts, and I've worked with friends in private on doing those things with them. So I have worked with people on using that, and it's helped them get memories back. but I'm not going to put it publicly anymore
There's
because
so many people that need it done.
yeah,
So
yeah,
many.
yeah. And I recommend they find a good practitioner to do it with, because there are people out there who do that. So I recommend they go to them, or try something. Get a hypnosis book, self-hypnosis. Try learning something on your own. It's in public library. Well, I know you can't go to public libraries right now, but public libraries have audiobooks on it. They have physical print books on it, self-hypnosis. Like, it's out there. That's how I learned a lot of the techniques for my scripts too. My shaman teacher taught me past life regression and a bit of hypnosis, but the rest I learned on my own, and I tailored the scripts to work properly for me. And when I did it on friends. So, and I remember you and I did that document. Remember we did that document
I
together?
worked on it. That was a tough time for me. I was just in the middle of, I was working an incredible amount of time. That was a tough window in life for me. Let me see. I'm looking up at self-hypnosis. If there are 4 types, there's a lot of info. I just put self-scripted hypnosis, and there's
Yeah,
actually quite a bit that popped up easy.
yeah, exactly.
Do you guys, where you're at in Canada, do you guys have a like a time when they give you a time to expect when they're going to start easing back on the quarantine stuff?
No, no. We have it good here because we can still go shopping. We can still, a lot of people are working. So no time frame, but it's a loosey-goosey lockdown.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, here in Michigan, so I guess we're one of the harder hit areas, and it's all downstate. But the town I'm in, during the day, there's quite a bit of traffic. Everybody's out at the stores, but at night, it's totally shut off. I mean, it's totally like a ghost town. And they're talking about at the end of like the first, May 1st, lightening up the restrictions. Because right now, it's like there's no restaurant, there's nothing. And a lot of people want to get back to work.
Yeah, most of our restaurants are, they have to comply with doing takeout food.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
that's about
same.
it. You can't go just to a restaurant, sit down and start eating. That you can't do. Or go to
Yeah.
malls and congregate.
I'm afraid we might not get that back the way we remembered it, because they're going to start spacing people out farther. They're going to have to adapt, and it's going to cost. And we're going to lose some restaurants, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not a mall person. I'm not a shopping person. I don't go out with friends to parties and to hang out at restaurants. So for me, it doesn't really even affect me that much. I've pretty much keep to myself and do my own stuff. And when I need to go shopping, I just crawl out from under my rock, go do it when needed. And
You're
come
right
back.
at home in a quarantine then.
It's like
No big deal.
no big deal. I haven't noticed any changes in my life. Nothing. Just a quiet person that keeps to myself and does my
Well,
stuff.
my only regret, I'm like that too. I can stay home just fine, but we had just moved, and I've got a lot of projects to do that I can't do now. And I'm also afraid to spend any money because you don't know. I mean, you
Exactly.
don't know when it's going to end, really. They can tell you one thing and change it. So we
Is
could get a
this,
whole nother resurgence. They could open everything up and it could come back right back again, which is
yeah.
happening to
And
people.
for your move, is this your own house or are you renting or?
I was renting before, and then now it's my house.
Okay, so take your time. This is your house, so take your time with it. When you can do your renos, your whatever, then you do them.
Yeah.
I'm in the same boat. This house is decent, but the floors are gapping in spots because it's hardwood floor, like put over radiant heat, and you shouldn't put hardwood floor over radiant heat. But they did. The original owners, it's a something 8.5-year-old house. Oops, those floors still work. So for now they're staying, and maybe in a couple of years, we're gonna get vinyl flooring because that never gaps over radiant heat.
Also, your floor has moved on you.
Yeah, they
Moved.
gap and just gaps between the planks, like because it's engineered hardwood floor.
Yeah.
It's still gaps. You don't put that over radiant heat because the heat is even in places everywhere on the floor. It's coils. It's radiant heat coils. It's radionic heat. Like newer houses have radiant heat. They don't have the forced flow, forced air. So
Yeah, it makes you sleepy. Whenever I sit on a floor that's warm, I want to go right to sleep.
yeah, it's a warm floor. The cat adores it. But the thing is, you have to get specialized flooring. The original owners didn't. So it gaps in places when the heat is on, and then it closes up in the summer, the gaps in the planks. So eventually it will have to be replaced in a couple of years. But I'm not in a hurry because right now we don't know how things are going to go when everything will open up.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that, like you said about my other interview I did with Randy. He predicted that things are going to get even nuttier. As soon as you don't believe it, I can't believe that happened. Something even more unbelievable is going to happen, so that they can work your way up to saying, "Oh, by the way, there's aliens." So that makes a lot of sense too. That's totally a logical approach at that problem, and we know it's around the corner. Like I said, it's just we're so close to it right now that it's got to be. They've got to tell us. There's just no way they can keep it secret
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah, and is your house like, do you have a lot of reno to do?
Yeah, no, not a ton. I mean, it's not everything works,
Yeah.
but it's just making it look better. There's a lot of cosmetic stuff that we want to do.
Yeah, same with our house, but right now we have internet connection. I have an office space, and you have wherever you are, you can talk, you can do your things, it's functional. So for now, that's
It's in the
okay.
garage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. It's
If I
functional.
keep doing interviews here, I got to give it a paint job, and that'll come. But we
It's
can't buy paint right now.
Yeah, it's functionality. If it works, and you can do your interviews still. So that's the most important part. I
Ileana, this
don't.
is the first interview I've ever talked real estate. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but this is the first time I've ever talked real estate in one of these interviews.
Well, I've moved, so I've learned a lot about house reno and real estate and upkeep and upgrade.
Yeah,
So
that's great.
I can tell you a lot about radiant heating and what type of flooring I'll need in the future,
That's great.
or what other things, because I've gone through 4 places I've moved, and it's like just health-wise, some of the real estate wasn't working out, and locations weren't working out, so I had to sell, buy, sell, and buy again. But hey, that's life. Everything you learn, experiential things by doing things.
Yeah, true that.
So, right now, save your money and don't spend. That's my recommendation. You can do it later. Renovations are like, if it functions, works, it's fine. I don't care what your, background looks like. I care about you and what you have to say and your information. So
Right, and I'm not exactly cranking out interviews these days anyway. A lot of the stuff like there for a while, like one thing I want to say, the there's a lot of skepticism now about Q and the arrests, right? Because we're kind of in that little gray area. And when the first year that Trump took office, I was contacted by a group of basically soldiers of fortune, like a company that was going and rescuing kids from being sex trafficked. And he said was that they wanted me as an advisor. And what he said was that the Trump administration was funding guys like him. There was a lot of funding coming down the pipe. So that's real. So I mean, that's something that I actually had contact with. I witnessed it. I was an advisor to them in some capacity, not a whole lot. There wasn't a whole lot I could tell them. And that was real. So when Trump took office, they really went after the child trafficking. And that's something that they haven't publicly come out and said. Q has alluded to it, but the Trump administration isn't really going around bragging about, bringing in sex trafficking, shutting down the sex trafficking. There's a few things, but that's really not his sales pitch. So that's real, man. A lot of people are skeptical that any arrests are happening, but it's absolutely real. This is absolutely something that is in the forefront of them. And I think the reason they don't talk about it so much is because a lot of people would be shocked to know how widespread it is, and how many kids are taken, and how many people participate in it. A lot of people that are heroes to people are participating in it.
Yeah. And I believe you, because even I was never sexually abused on Mars on those bases, but I did see some SSP assets who were put into sex orgies against their will with others, or even if it was voluntarily, there was a lot of people having sex in places. That was part of the culture.
It was because you were going to go back and not remember anything anyway. So it's kind of like, the ultimate of, there was no consequence. So they said you might as well. And um, there were a few different, I've talked to other people, there's a lot to do with, when you go somewhere and you want to tell a secret about something, you shut up when all of a sudden you think about the time that you got raped.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying? Like it's a real triggering event, so that when you even talk about anything that happened around that month, you want to shut up. You don't want to talk about it. It's very hard to speak of, and that's why they do it. And when they are doing secret things, there's a lot of people that I've talked to that had pretty prestigious jobs. They weren't a cargo guy like me. They were pretty prestigious and up in command, and they got raped because that shut them up from what happened, and also kind of puts them in line. Like it's a dominance thing. So that's part of the culture up there. That's, if we're going to do business with them, if we're going to disclose, and there's going to be people from up the streets going up there, that's got to go. There are big change. There's systemic changes on both sides, on up there and down here. In many places, many things are going to have to change. So,
Yeah.
it's not a car turning around. It's a cruise ship turning around.
Yeah, and on Mars, these sex orgies participation, it was an induction. It's like to induct you into depravity, into to get you to do things you normally wouldn't do outside your comfort zone. So it wasn't just, oh yeah, I want to have an orgy and a sex fest. It was an induction to lower your inhibitions and to get you used to doing weird things you normally wouldn't do. That tomorrow you might be asked to participate something worse than a sex orgy. And you do it because that's the induction. It's been done to you. It's the programming.
They push a lot of the atheism and even the Satanism on some of them for that reason as well. Because if you believe in God, or you believe in the law of one thing where everybody is the same, like, you're not going to pull the trigger against something else that's another person or another being. You're not going to destroy it if you think that it's part of you as well through a religious text. So they really push the atheism and that, it's every man for himself, and from the belief system. So a lot of people come back and they're atheists, and which is, you're right, but I'm saying that's the reason is not because atheism is 100 clear cut the way it is. They did it for a tactical reason, for a tactical result, and that was widespread up there as well.
Yeah, or you come back with bad programming habits that you can't break out of the cycle of. You go after and attack people, and instead of staying in your own lane, doing your own disclosure. I think we all know who we're talking about, no naming names, but I think that person came back with programming.
Yes, definitely. And I think that there are some whistleblowers that are current assets. Like like it started out as a whistleblower, and then they went away. That the people that were supporting them went away, and they had to jump and become part of an asset of one of the programs, and now they have to play by those rules, and it's not working out.
Yeah,
and it's not working out.
I believe that person is still an asset.
Yeah, absolutely.
An active asset, and it's divide and conquer.
Anybody that has active intelligence is an active asset, and I don't. I don't have any kind of active stuff going on. So anybody that comes down and tells you what happened a few months ago or what's coming up is an active asset. They're inside a program, and they're not speaking for themselves. They're speaking for that program. They're not acting for themselves. They're acting for what they were told to do from that program.
Or
that's just the bottom line.
Or they're enacting bad programming that never got worked through, and to divide and conquer everything in these communities. That's another one of those things.
I don't think I'm ever going to shake some of the habits I got. Really, a lot of the things that I went through, emotionally and through, just relationship wise, I'm never going to shake some of the stuff. got bent from it. There's a lot of things I've worked through. I can talk about it, and I really came light years away from where I was before I remembered and before I talked about everything. But I know there's a lot of things I'm not going to shake. I've just got some, you know,
Yeah.
scars.
Yeah, me too. But there's like, I remember when first being put into the programs, the training, you're taught to lie, to cheat, to steal, to manipulate as much as you can, and to cause chaos and cause as much chaos and mayhem as you can while you're in the programs and when you're put back on Earth. So I try to resist that programming because I know it's mind control programming put in my brain to get me to do bad things. I realize that. So I just don't engage in horrid, weird behaviors that hurt others and hurt me. But some people do engage in it, and they have no control over it, stopping it.
I don't own any guns because I went through that programming in the early days. They went through, and it was like the hypno stuff, and it told you to count the bullets down so that you could shoot a bunch of other people and save the last one for yourself. The last one is mine. 8, the last one is mine. 7, the last one is mine. 6, and that was the program. That was the movie. It was like we were on drugs, and it was like the last bullet is mine. And it was like, I know that programming's in there, so I don't want a gun. I'm in an open carry state. Michigan is very lax on gun laws. I would love to carry one, for security. There's bears where I live. There's other things. I won't do it because I know that programming is in there, and I'm afraid I'll use the damn thing.
I actually have a lot of firearms.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that.
Yeah,
you have a gun collection.
Still there.
My family does, and it's not. I can just go and borrow a gun, but I don't want one for that reason. But we're a gun family, and I would love to have a few, and but it just scares me to death that I would be stupid about it.
Well, I've had situations where I've been through depression and stuff, but I've never had that program activated and never had the urge, never will. My other programming that is active is I'm a dominatrix.
Oh.
So just not the kinky stuff, not BDSM, just the control factor. Just keeping control, knowing how to use it, when to use it, studying people, in life situations. I'm very much, that programming is active. The dominatrix programming, being in control and keeping control, is very much active, and that's from Mars. And to this day, I'm very dominant, just a very dominant person. That programming is active, but I don't use that to hurt others. I don't use it in that way. I use it just to keep control and to live my life in a very structured way. So that's my programming.
A lot of the stuff we went through and the programming for those people is very watered down and gone. Like, I can remember going through it, but I don't have a lot of the same habits. Like, for instance, a lot of the mind control, like if I were zapped with an electric current and I would stop and accept command, I don't do that anymore. But I do have kind of a weird feeling if I get zapped, I do have a pause, like I pause. And that's like a leftover thing. So it's very watered down. The programming of it.
Well, I one time had a slip where the dominating programming, where blackmail was involved, actually got the other person to stop doing. I had to blackmail them, honestly, and it stopped their bad behavior.
Wow.
But that person does blackmail themselves, so it was correspondence, basically. And I think we know who that same person is, who I'm describing. So
no names mentioned.
No names, no. But it was theirs and mine correspondence together. And like, just said, if you don't cease and desist, I will release certain things out into the public, and it will be known. That's a form of blackmail. That's a soft form of blackmail, but that's still blackmail. So I admit to it. It's not a secret. That was the only time where I ever had to do that. even came close to, like, I would have done it if the person hadn't ceased and desisted. But they did. That stopped them when blackmail was mentioned and stopped them dead cold in the water. So it really.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that's all they understand.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's just how they speak. That's the bully mentality. Like a bully will do horrible things until they feel like they'll get punished, and then it stops. And most people don't communicate that way, but unfortunately, a lot of people do.
Yeah, and I don't like stooping to that level. I understand it's programming, and I just keep in mind, I'm very aware of all my programming that I have from the programs. So I just try to work through it and not be tempted to enact that programming or trigger it. Understanding why you have it is the first step to releasing it and not activating it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
That's right.
why are you the way you are? Why do you do these things, urges, habits?
That's what's so dangerous about the blank slating, is that a lot of people have bad habits or bad things, traumatic things, and they have the problem from it, but they don't remember the cause. And so a lot of things for me, a lot of habits I had went away as soon as I got my memories back, and I went, that's why. And I could address the problem, and it just evaporated, just disintegrated. But a lot of people that are blank slated, they'll never get their memories back, and they've still got these trauma effects on them. And so, talking about it, finding the problem, and then dealing with it. But a lot of trauma causes you to go back into it. A traumatized mind will seek out the trauma long after they're away from it in an attempt to master it, because you were powerless in the traumatic event. And in an attempt, your subconscious will try to master that same event by seeking it out elsewhere. And a lot of people go through that. That's, the old adage, like a woman that's in a marriage where she's beaten will divorce and then all of a sudden get into and find another guy that beats her. And it's that reason, because your subconscious mind is trying to master what you were powerless, become powerful over what you were powerless at. And I see it time and time again, and time and time and time again with people I work with. And I don't really do it. It's not like I'm a doctor, but people that ask me, they come to me for information, like, help me out. I have these memories, and what do I do? And you just see the same common denominators over and over again.
Yeah. And for me, I understood that collecting the firearms, that was a programming. Because at that time, I was just starting to remember the SSP stuff, but so hazy. I thought it was just cool to collect weapons. And then I understood that's a form of programming, and I stopped. My collection hasn't grown exponentially. I stopped collecting. I still have what's there, what's collected, but I don't collect more because I understand that's an unhealthy programming that was happening, and a fascination with weapons because I was remembering bits and pieces of Mars in the battle training with plasma rifles and laser beam weapons. So
military service, yeah.
Yeah, it was basic battle training. I wasn't forced to go and shoot people on Mars and be out in the battlefield, but I got the Viking class battle ready training for it just in case.
Sure.
So, okay, when released back on Earth and starting to remember, of course I started enacting weapons collection because it was fascinating for me. So that's why I did it, so I understand why I did it, and I stopped collecting after 2 years because I'm like, enough is enough. I understand why, I understand where this is coming from, so it's time to stop. It's time to stop. I was able to stop myself, but some people can't.
Well, and you were fortunate enough, like I said, to remember why. Why you had that. That's the thing. Like, if you would have never known, you would have had this. You have all these things that happen, and you don't know why. So it's like it'll never get fixed.
And also, it gets tiring lugging around an arsenal. Wherever you move, wherever you go, you have to make sure all of that stuff is secured and not.
A big safe or something, right? It's heavy. Yeah, that's a good investment. I mean, in the long run.
If the zombie apocalypse comes, good gosh.
Yeah, it's a virus, though.
Yeah, I know. But some zombies can be killed and some can't.
Hmm.
So, I mean, anyways, it's just a joke. Zombie apocalypse, gotta be ready for anything and everything. I don't think we'll need it, but it's a readiness, it's a preparedness. Again, that's the programming.
Yeah. I I mean, I hope I don't eat these words, but I have a genuine feeling I think we got good days ahead of us in the future.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we don't have a zombie apocalypse, so this is nothing in comparison to that. COVID is mild in comparison to a zombie apocalypse. Not that I'm saying that COVID is not something to be taken seriously, because it is, but it's not a zombie virus. It's not
Yeah.
eating away at you and making you a zombie.
It's definitely going to have some big cultural impacts.
Yes.
Like everybody is going to stay germophobic for a long time.
Yep. Put your gloves on, put your mask on, and sanitize everything. Keep that sanitizer with you.
Yeah, that's the new normal for sure.
Well, I use a sanitizer every week anyways, and I have to follow antiseptic protocols because I inject myself with plasma infusions every week. So keeping germ-free is something that's part of my weekly routine for plasma infusion, so I'm used to it. I always have a sanitizer in my purse.
Hmm.
So, and it's scent-free, so it doesn't stink of alcohol or
You can't even
antiseptic.
get it nowadays. There's a lot of places you can't. It's like it's worth its weight in gold around here.
Oh, darn. Geez. I actually need a lot of that stuff on a regular basis. So just have to ration, I guess, until it's back in the market. So, well, I think we've covered a lot today. So,
Yeah, we have. We've come a long ways. I mean, and these are strange times. You know what? Like 2 weeks down the road, it's going to be a different world again. You
mhm.
know, they're hoping to open everything up. We'll see how it goes. Um, these are strange times, and I think it's just beginning.
Well, I don't think COVID should be taken lightly because it is infectious. It has killed people, and a lot of people survived from it as well. So just keep safe, keep clean, keep
It's
social
real.
distancing. Yeah, it's real.
A friend of mine's a doctor. He says most people that come in to get treated need oxygen therapy. They need something, not so much a respirator, but at least oxygen. So it's very aggressive on the respiratory system. It's real. People think there's no virus out there. There's a virus. It's real.
Yeah,
It definitely deserves the hype because a
it,
lot of people are being very sick and dying.
it goes to the brain, it goes to the lungs, it goes to the heart, the liver, the kidneys. It goes to a lot of different places. I very much believe it's real. And just keep safe, keep doing what you have to do. You know, it is starting to chafe that there's a lockdown, but it's in place for a reason to try to keep us safe in a certain degree.
Yeah, there's
So,
worse things people could be forced to do. It could be a lot worse than just being in your home and collecting unemployment
yeah,
nowadays. So I think
exactly.
overall it's not that bad.
Yeah, it's not a zombie apocalypse.
Hmm.
We're alive. We're staying safe. We're keeping perspective, and we're not under martial law.
Yeah, yeah,
Anything's better than that.
true.
So it's perspective.
Well, thanks. Thanks for having me. I mean, it's been forever since we talked. Hopefully, we can do one again soon with a few other people, like you were talking.
Yeah.
That would be nice. I'm totally up for it.
Yeah, me too. I don't know Randy's contact info, so I asked Jay if he can, speak to Randy or friend. I don't know where Randy is. So that's why I contacted Jay. So hopefully,
I
if
see.
Randy wants to, I'm up for it. You're up for it. So that would be nice indeed.
Yeah,
So thank you so much, Tony. Looking forward. Even if we do one down the road somewhere just together, it's always wonderful to see you.
I would love to because there'll be plenty to talk about too in a few months' time. There's going to be some changes.
Oh
We'll
yeah.
see. I'll catch you on the next big event.
Yeah, exactly. Wherever, whenever. We'll see you soon.
Okay. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.